Yo, welcome to Monday, everybody, and let's go Mets. So much has happened since the last time we had a conversation, folks. So much has happened since the last time we had a conversation. So we about to get into all of it. Every single bit of it. Hope y'all ready. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mets Life on YouTube. And you already know when it comes to the Mets, is always, always, always for life, baby. If you guys are joining me on the YouTube, I appreciate you guys for stopping by, coming back. Ready to talk some Mets this week. If you guys are watching me on the Instagram Live, I appreciate you guys for giving me this time. But we gonna talk about our New York Metropolitans. I mean, the roller coaster that was this last week, I can't even begin to describe like how crazy that whole entire thing was. So the last time we spoke, the Mets were facing the Yankees, I believe. And that was the Mets got swept that series, and then they end up taking the next one. I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And that and that to me was like the beginning of the panic that got into the Mets fan base. So right. Okay, so we faced the Yankees, and then we got swept that series. So we took the Phillies series, and that was kind of like a wild, crazy series, right? So the doubleheader was the Saturday, August 20th. We won the first game, lost the second game. And they had, I think, Falter was their pitcher, and I don't understand how he pitched such a good game, but that's what happens sometimes when you don't have a straight doubleheader and you have a split doubleheader. I've heard a lot of major league players, and I've heard this a lot from the SNY booth, that a lot of major league players prefer the straight rather than the split because the break in between kind of gives people the kind of give player that feeling like that rest in between. They just don't like it. So The next game they won that. That was the Mark Canna game, where he tied it. Then the Phillies took the lead, and then he gave us the lead, and then we won. Then we faced the Yankees. We lost both games, same score, 4-2. Nothing crazy. Aaron Judge. That's it. I mean, that's all you can say about any Yankees win nowadays is just say the name Aaron Judge. And that's pretty much about it. So we move on from that. We face the Colorado Rockies. We win 3 of 4. Then we get the Dodgers series. The Timmy Trumpet playing the trumpets, that series. It was nerve-wracking for me because I'm like, man, if this guy goes in here, he plays these trumpets, and we lose, it's going to kind of feel embarrassing. You already know the jokes, the LOL METS, all that stuff that everybody likes to talk about jumps in. So we lose the first game. Really close. Really close. And then the next two, the 2-1 game, very close. Tough to win. The Dodgers don't lose many games by the score of 2-1. I'm going to just put it like that, right? One of the best teams in baseball, if not the best team in baseball. They are the benchmark. And to win that game, 2-1, to me was more than just a victory. It was like, we can hang. Like, if this is October, this is going to be a very entertaining, very intense, very high stakes type of series, which is what we all kind of want. Mets, Dodgers, NLCS, or Mets, Braves, NLCS, whichever one. It's going to make for some really dramatic, really good baseball. You know, especially when you got DeGrom and Scherzer at the top. Then we face the Nationals. The first game we go in there, we put the beats on them, we win 7-3, and then we lose the next two rather an embarrassing fashion, right? Competitive game up to the 8th inning, both games. And the first game, we're down by 1 going into the 8th, and then it just blew up. And then same thing on the Sunday game. But that Saturday game, actually, Scherzer was hurt. Not hurt, but he came out of the game. And so then the bullpen took over, and they just couldn't hold it down. The September 4th game, I think that was Carrasco's first game back. Washington just went off on him. Just really non-competitive. And it was one of those things where the Mets haven't, I mean, you look up and down the schedule, the Mets haven't lost a series against a bad team at all. At all. The teams that's given the Mets the most trouble was San Diego. Other than that, and Houston. San Diego and Houston, I say, probably, you know, and those were the stretches where it's like, it was kind of like, dang, right? And then I remember we lost the series to Seattle. But all those 3 of those games were very, very close. But we lost the series to Seattle. Then, doubleheader, Pittsburgh, September 7th, dominate. Mets dominate. They win the first game 5-1. Chris Bassett pitched a beautiful game. And then the next game, Jacob deGrom in the nightcap, the Mets win 10-0. Right? So this is after not really scoring much over the last few games, right? It was 3-1 against Colorado, 3-0 against Colorado, 7-6 against Colorado, which is the highest scoring game in that whole entire kind of week, right? The 5-3 against the Dodgers, 7-3 against the Nationals, but the doldrums. It's like everybody was panicking, Panic City. The Mets are losing it. The Braves did not lose anything. They weren't losing much, but they weren't playing many competitive teams in that time. What I love from this Mets team is that they're not standing there up there during their post-game interviews or their pre-game interviews talking about how, oh, Atlanta hasn't faced good teams and bad teams, blah, 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 blah. So the whole hoopla was coming into September, the Mets were going to face a bunch of bad teams. They struggled the first series. They lost it against Washington. They come back, they win the series against Pittsburgh, come back, win the series against Miami. Especially after losing the first game to Miami after an off day. And that was kind of like one of those, there was a lot of, what is Buck Showalter doing with the bullpen? He's not managing the games like with importance, with urgency. And to be honest, I think Buck would agree. I think Buck would agree that he wasn't going to push anybody to the brink of them falling off because we're just so close to the postseason. Any significant injury to any player on this Mets team, bro, I'm telling you right now, any significant injury to any Mets player on this team is going to put a monkey wrench into whatever the Mets are trying to do. Look at the Yankees, right? For example, and this is not shit talking the Yankees. This is just facts. You can make a whole separate lineup of the guys who are injured on the Yankees. And they're going through that now at possibly the worst time ever. But give them credit in a very, very important series where the Tampa Bay Rays, I think, knocked it down to 2 games or 3 games, and the Yankees needed to respond. They were in deep trouble because if you look at the AL wild card, the top wild card is the Tampa Bay Rays. Their lead over the Baltimore Orioles, which is the team on the bubble, on the outside looking in, is 2 games. So if the Yankees lose the 2 games to Tampa, they get swept. Let's say they get swept by Tampa. They're tied. Right? They're either tied or they're up by only 1 game. The Yankees would have put themselves in danger. And I know even the sound of this kind of will give Yankee fans like the heebie-jeebies. But if they get swept by the Tampa, the Yankees are in danger of possibly not even making the postseason. Bro, that is in no way, shape, or form what the Yankees want, right? Because that in itself, the fact that the Tampa Bay Rays are 2 up on the final wild cards on the outside to the top wild card team, up 2 games. I believe it might be a little bit more. But the fact that the Tampa Bay Rays, it's such a close race in that AL wild card, right? That it's insane, bro. It's insane. So the top 3 teams right now, if the postseason started today, the Yankees and the Houston Astros get a first round bye. Cleveland will face Toronto in a 3-game set in Cleveland. Tampa will face Seattle in a 3-game set in Tampa. The winner of Tampa and Seattle will go on to face the winner. They will go on to face the Yankees. The winner of Cleveland and Toronto will go on to face Houston. Or vice versa. I think it's the other way around. I think the winner of Tampa and Seattle will face Houston. Right. The winner of Tampa and Seattle will face Houston. And then the winner of Cleveland and Toronto will face the Yankees. But if you look at the wild card, how many games back the Yankees are from... the Tampa Bay Rays are from the bottom, right? So the bottom, Toronto, is half a game behind both Tampa and Seattle. Baltimore is 5.5 out. The Yankees get swept, and Baltimore was a lot closer than that. They just lost 2 in a row. So they kind of messed up their chances, which is benefiting to the Yankees, right? Because the Yankees the Yankees won 2 in a row. Tampa lost 2 in a row. So it looks the same. The separation between the Yankees and the second place Tampa Bay Rays and the Yankees and the Baltimore Orioles, who were on the outside in the wild card, is the same exact number of games. That's wild. So let's say for some reason it's the other way around, and Tampa won those 2 games and the Yankees lost those 2 games, right? Tampa would have been at 80 and 60, right? The Yankees would have been at 58. They would have been at 83 and 58, which I don't even want to begin to even make up what that scenario would be like. But the Yankees won 2 games they needed to win. And when you look at the Mets, it's a completely different story, right? So in those games that the Mets lost, they lost the lead to the National League East. And the panic that went all around was insane. Now, last night, because the Mets won 2 and Atlanta lost 2, the Mets are back a game and a half on Atlanta. Now, the Mets would love some more breathing room, right? Because it just doesn't leave any room for error, right? You got to play the Cubs and the Pittsburgh Pirates the best you possibly can. And we understand these guys are human beings and it's tough. And, these are still major league ball clubs with major league hitters who are in the major leagues for a reason, right? So you can never, ever, even though the schedule is, what it is. And yes, you could say, well, the Braves have handled every weak opponent they faced and they've dominated them. There's no literally, we're talking about 11 games plus 11 on the run differential from the Atlanta Braves and the Mets. The Atlanta Braves have 1 more win at home. The Mets have 3 more wins on the road against teams that are above 500. But this is where I feel that the Mets are the better team, are better equipped for the postseason, is against teams that are plus 500. The Mets are 39 and 30, almost 10 games above 500. The Atlanta Braves are 28 and 32 against teams plus 500. Atlanta still has a series against Philadelphia. Right? Atlanta still they have 2 series against Philadelphia and they have 2 series against us. So it's not going to be easy. They're a good team. They're a great team. I promise you, the Phillies are going to play Atlanta very, very tough. The Phillies want to put the clamps on Atlanta. They want to put the pressure on them. Atlanta's a very good team. Atlanta is better than the Phillies. They have better pitching. The pitching is better. The offense is better. But the Phillies they're gonna be punching up. Right? Which is why I'm happy I wouldn't be facing them right now, though I believe we can handle them. But what the Mets had to experience in those 2 losses against Washington and that 1 loss against Pittsburgh and then that opening series loss against Miami. It's like these teams aren't going to like lay down. These teams are going to play you tough. I mean, we're in the home stretch now, right? Postseason baseball is upon us. It's going to happen. But I think that the Mets showed something. They showed that they are well equipped to battle. They're well equipped to fight. They also showed me something that I feel like it's the reason why the Braves aren't at the top of the division. Now, they were for a day, but look at what happened. They faced a good team, a postseason team, a team in Seattle that honestly, if they had better starting pitching, would be a dangerous team. Seattle is a very, very good team. Seattle is a part of a group of teams. The landscape in the face of Major League Baseball is going to change. Sort of like when we entered the 2014s when the Mets started becoming good and the Royals started becoming good. And then you also had Houston on the rise, and Houston had the best success of those teams. You could also look at LA, the Dodgers. The Dodgers started getting way, 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 way better in 2013, 2012. You look at their history, the Dodgers have been the best team in baseball, and the Astros have been up there with them. But there's going to be a change in the guard. There's going to be a dramatic shift in baseball. Sort of like with Tampa coming up, started winning the division a couple times. Tampa's won the division probably like 3-4 times over the last few seasons. Boston's won it a couple. The Yankees won it a few. But Baltimore is that team that's going to start creeping up, being better. Toronto is going to... That whole AL East division is a division that it's the reason why the Yankees are where they are right now. When everybody thought they were going to really run away with it, it's like, nah. The division is too tough. The division is very, very extremely, extremely tough. And when you start playing these teams and, you're not well versed in overall hitting, spraying the ball all over the park, and you're just centered on, playing very good defense and hitting the long ball, you're going to suffer. You're going to struggle. You're going to struggle because you're depending on one guy to do one thing, and that's hit home runs. It's why Barry Bonds never won a championship. It's why Mark McGwire McGwire won a championship, but that was in his early years. But when he started bashing and mashing 60, 70 home runs a season, he didn't win a jack. The teams that were the better teams were the Yankees, the Braves, the Padres. Why? Even Cleveland, because they were teams that were built on just hitting, getting the next man over, sort of like the way the Mets are built now. So you're gonna start seeing a change in the guard, and some of the best teams kind of being challenged. Houston is gonna get challenged by Seattle. Cleveland is gonna continue just being the class of the division, though it's always been kind of like it's a three-headed monster with Cleveland, Chicago, and Minnesota. The Mets are a team to be reckoned with. They got money, plus they got youth. That's a dangerous combination. Atlanta has youth. They got some money, but not Mets type of money. But they got money. They got some dough, and they're playing it smart. They're playing it smart, and they're doing what teams should be doing, which is locking up your star players, to give you some more financial. The Braves are kind of like, they're playing this like a football team right now. Like the way you run football teams is you lock up your players early, and sort of kind of like the way football deals are made. It's kind of like that in a sense. But, they're buying out free agency years and arbitration years and probably like one or two free agency years, giving them a set number that doesn't have to fluctuate based on performance year in and year out because of arbitration. So that's why the Atlanta Braves made those moves, which is smart, right? Because if a guy becomes a superstar, sort of like with Ozzy Albies and Ronald Acuna, if they were going through arbitration right now, they'll be getting paid crazy amount of money that teams wouldn't be able to keep up with how much it will cost. So when you lock those players up through their arbitration years, you don't have to worry about that. So what you're doing is you're shaving off money off the top so you can invest that into better pitching, better bullpen, better bench bats. So Atlanta is going to be a force to be reckoned with. They are a part of that team that's going to be, a problem. They've been a problem the last few seasons. They've won the division. They are that team, but now they're getting even better. Philly have always been a mess, and their minor league system is absolute garbage. So they'll have to buy their way into being better. But the way it is now, how much the Mets are better, how much Atlanta is better, it's tough. It's tough to jump them to. They're going to be in the market for a shortstop out here, and that might work out for them. Carlos Correa in Philadelphia would be a dangerous mix. But just bring it on. I mean, pitching beats good hitting every single time. Good pitching beats good hitting every single time. St. Louis has always been, and St. Louis would be a completely different, better team if they really played it smart. They made a couple trades. They made two trades. They made a trade for St. Louis made the trade for Marcell Ozuna, and then they made another trade for Goldschmidt. In those two trades, they traded two top-tier rotation arms that are two of the best in baseball today. In the Arizona starter, their best starter, and Sandy Alcantara, who is the Marlins' best pitcher up for the Cy Young this season. But when you look at the Zach Gallen, right? So Zach Gallen, and the Zach Gallen thing is crazy because Zach Gallen was with St. Louis. They traded him and Alcantara for Marcell Ozuna, right? So the Marlins are nuts for that too, because they would have had Zach Gallen and Sandy Alcantara. But the Marlins trade Zach Gallen for Jazz Chisholm, so that's why Gallen is in Arizona, Chisholm is in Miami. But St. Louis traded them two. Not only did they trade them two, they traded Randy Arozarena in the 2022 season for Red Sox Tommy Pham. Which is, bro, imagine. But when you're a good team, that's how you have sustained success. That's how you win multiple divisions. That's how you play above the division, is when you can trade prospects and not suffer at the major league level, which is where the Mets want to be, which is where they're headed towards. Right? Look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers traded Yordan Alvarez, and they traded another guy who's like big in Major League Baseball right now. They traded both of them, and still the Dodgers are the class of the, like, you get what I'm saying? They are all that and then some. So that's what you want to be. You want to be the Dodgers. Right now, expected win-loss record, is 101 and 38, which is where they would be expected based on runs scored and runs allowed, based on differential. But that's what they're headed towards. That's what they're headed towards. 100 plus games. 100 plus games. The Braves are playing actually where they are. The Mets are playing above that. Their expected win-loss is 85 and 56. Right now, the Mets are 89 and 52. The Braves' expected win-loss, which is bananas, is 86 and 54. They're playing above by +1, which is they're 87 and 53. So if they would have lost that first game and they would have got swept by Seattle, they would have been at 86 and 54. So wild to even think that that these things are headed in that direction. Gonna check for probables for this series versus the Cubs. And we have tonight we have Bassett on the mound. I think tomorrow is DeGrom. And then I think, because I don't know if Max is coming back that series or Thursday against the Pirates. So it's either, they'll have Walker pitch the 14th, or maybe David Peterson comes back, pitches the 14th, or whatever. But man, not much can be said about where the Mets are, where the Mets are going, where the Mets want to be. I mean, give them props, man. Give the Mets props. The Mets are a playoff team. The Mets are a team that's going to win some postseason games. It's going to be a very exciting and thrilling postseason. Right now, if we see the postseason brackets, it's very, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So like I mentioned earlier with the bracket for the American League. The bracket for the American League is the bracket for the American League is basically you have the Yankees and the Astros, right? They're 1 and 2 respectively. The 1 and 2 will face 4 and 5. The 4 and 5, which is Tampa. Oh no, Tampa facing. Oh no, that's the number 3. The third division is number 3. So 4, yeah. So Tampa and Seattle, winner of that faces Houston. The winner of Cleveland and Toronto will face the Yankees. If I had to pick my choice, Seattle beats Tampa facing Astros. Toronto beats Cleveland facing the Yankees. The Yankees will then lose to Toronto, and then the Astros beat Seattle. Because Seattle, I don't think, have enough pitching to hang with Houston. And then the ALCS will be Houston versus Toronto. Insane. And then on the National League side, right, you have the Dodgers facing the winner of the Braves and the Padres or Phillies, whoever win that number 2 wild card. And then the Cardinals will face either the Padres or Phillies, whoever is in that final wild card spot. My prediction will be the Phillies will face the Braves in a 4 versus 5 to face whoever wins will face LA. St. Louis will face San Diego in a rematch of 2020. And the winner of that will face the Mets. The Mets beat any one of these teams. Though the Padres have played the Mets very, very well, I still believe in an NLDS series, the Mets will beat the Padres. I just feel that the Mets pitching is way too much for what the Padres have offensively, given that Tatis isn't going to be there. But it will be competitive. For sure will be competitive. And then, so we'll have, right, so, because it's the Phillies versus, it's Cardinals versus Padres. The Mets face the Padres, I feel like we can beat them. If the Mets face the Cardinals, it'll be very competitive. Tight, but I still think the Mets have way too much good pitching to succumb to St. Louis. So if I had to pick St. Louis versus San Diego, I believe San Diego will lose. The Mets will face the Cardinals, get some revenge for that. And then the Mets will also face the next bracket is the Braves versus the Phillies, which we could be getting a preview of that over the next few days, which is crazy. So depending on how the Phillies play the Braves, and that's starting Friday, depending on how those two series go, if the Phillies can compete pitching wise, offensively, then yeah, I just feel like defensively the Phillies have some holes. Offensively, if Schwarber's hot, if Castellanos is hot, Harper is hot, they can win. They do have that young shortstop who's good. I still think the Braves beat the Phillies in a wild card series. All 3 games will be played in the top seeds' home. So basically, all 3 games will be played in St. Louis. All 3 games will be played in Atlanta, if that's the way things shape up, right? If St. Louis is number 3, Atlanta is number 4, then both games will be played in St. Louis. All 3 games will be played in St. Louis and Atlanta. So I'm looking at Atlanta versus LA, the Mets versus the Cardinals. I think the Mets get revenge for all those years of that 2007, that pain, that hurt that the Mets experienced. I just believe that we can compete with them. They do have some really good offensive pieces in Nolan Arenado and also Paul Goldschmidt. But if you shut them down pitching wise, as I believe you can do, kind of like what we showed against Atlanta, right? If you could shut those 2 down, make everyone else have to try to beat you, then I think we can compete, right? That also they gotta shut down Alonso and Lindor, and that's not an easy task. And I feel like in the postseason it won't be an easy task. So, that's that. And then, I'm a Met fan, so I will never. I want them to win. They're gonna win. So NLCS, we're looking at the Mets versus either the Dodgers or the Braves. If you ask me who I want to face, I think the most exciting series, though I believe LA makes everything exciting. I don't know if LA, their offense can destroy the Atlanta pitching. If they can, then there's no shot. Atlanta won't survive. But I think NLCS is going to be the Mets and the Dodgers. A very competitive series, back and forth, rematch of 2015 to get to the World Series. In the World Series, we're looking at the New York Mets versus the Houston Astros. Unless the Yankees show me that they can get their shit together offensively and pitching wise, can shut it down, Subway Series all the way. But to hang with Houston, I just don't see it. I don't see the Yankees being that team. If Houston gets overconfident, then I can definitely see Houston fumbling the bag. And then the Yankees sneak into the World Series. But they have to beat, and this is assuming that they're getting their number 2 spot and they're getting their first round bye. They will have to beat either Cleveland or Toronto. The tougher match for them, in my opinion, is Cleveland. I just feel like Cleveland they're good, but if they face Cleveland, they're moving on. I don't know. I just don't see Cleveland beating the Yankees. It hasn't happened over the last few seasons, but it's possible. It's possible. It's who can beat the Astros in the American League and who can beat the Dodgers in the National League. And if nobody can beat them, then the Dodgers versus Houston Astros rematch of 2017, the revenge is on. This is going to be a fun ride. It's going to be a wild ride. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be crazy. But I'll tell you right now, no matter what it is, it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be good postseason baseball. And I cannot wait to see what happens in the postseason. I cannot wait. Hopefully we'll get the good result. Can Seattle beat Houston? That's to be seen. They will compete, but be wary of Seattle. The league is going to change over the next few years, so be wary of that as well. This was fun, man. The Mets and the Cubs tonight. We got Chris Bassett going up against the Cubbies. Hopefully we'll get a nice, strong game from Bassett at home. You already know the vibes. It's the Mets, baby, all day, every day. And you already know it's always, always, always for life.